4, 2.
Hello. Hello, world.
And
Yeah, we're not gonna. We have Matt Barry trying to call in today at some point, so we might get him to talk about LA. We were talking. This is the pre-show. We're talking a little bit after the show, after yesterday, and we're gonna kind of do one team at a time instead of two, because two just runs the show a little bit long, and so what your thoughts are on that in the chat room would be good. But we're thinking one show, and I really want to do it with people from the team. I don't just want to do it with our opinions because I think we've all heard our opinions on these teams. So if Matt calls in today, we'll do LA. I have a really good Florida person for tomorrow. So I'm trying to. So that's good. So we're gonna have LA and Florida. If not, we have other things to talk about today. So as soon as I hear from Matt, I will let you know whether we're gonna do LA today, and or not. So yeah, we got lots of fun things to talk about here. I guess
Salary arbitration.
wow.
Well, not just salary arbitration, because we had got some interesting news articles that I've been doing some research for the show today.
Did you guys see the Penguins news?
No.
Well,
we'll go right into that. Wait.
Jacques Martin.
Wait. Hold on.
Teaser.
Let's start the show.
Teaser. Okay. Sounds good.
Say we are live. Let me just tell the chat room we are live. Okay. Hey, Hockey World. Today is Wednesday, July 23rd, 2014.
Michael Agello.
I'm Josh Rimmer.
And I'm Eklund, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com, coming to you from this hot, squelchy summer day here in the hockey capital of the world, Pennsylvania.
Squelchy.
Yes, sweltering. But just whoa, holy cow! There you have it.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's hot. It's hot. It's just miserable here. And it's the kind of thing you're just praying for rain. So, but down in my office here, it's a good balmy 62 degrees. I think I keep this place super cold. so we're happy, ready to go. We got lots of news to talk about because last night, as usually occurs with these arbitration hearings, we had a couple people settle. And when they don't settle, I told Doug that I was in discussion on that thread on my blog with somebody about this. When they don't settle, that's when you usually see guys traded, which we'll get to as well. But the Rangers for starting there, because the other guy is we've talked about a lot. But let's start with the Rangers. Last night we get two signings. Kreider signs and. For about, I think it's 2.475, 2-year deal per year. And then also, Zuccarello signs a 1-year, $3.5 million bridge deal, to say the least, for the Rangers. So this is good. Mike, let's get your thoughts on this.
Well, the thing that first popped in my head when I saw the Zuccarello signing is that he's a UFA at the end of this year, and I don't know if it means he's gone at the end of next year, but he's going to be in a very enviable position if he puts up another season like he did. I mean, he was a very effective player for them in the playoffs. A lot of speed. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he did play very well for them. Scored almost 20 goals and 13 points in the playoffs. So he's an effective player, and somebody who I think on some teams could be a top 6 forward. On their team right now, he might be a third liner, but he provides a lot of quality depth. And $3.5 million for him. Some people might sort of shriek at that, but I mean he's a quality player. But I think he's well positioned if he has another year like that. Being in his mid-20s, I think he could really, rake it in next year as an unrestricted free agent. Kreider.
Starting with Zuccarello for a second. To me, he's Maxim Afinogenov in so many ways. He really reminds me of him, and in all the good parts of Afinogenov. Probably, Afinogenov has very much of a stigmatism, I think, with Buffalo people. But remember when he was at his best, he was dynamic. He could fly. He had incredible speed, and Zuccarello sort of reminds me of him in some ways.
He's in the sense of the skill set, yes. In the sense of the fact that he's the same type of player, no, because I think Matt Zuccarello went to the net more times in one game than Maxim Afinogenov did in his entire career. I mean, Max Afinogenov was a guy who skated around the net, who skated back to the point, he held onto the puck. His Corsi stats must have been phenomenal. Did not make him that great of a player. I mean, and the problem is that once he held on, and then he usually gave up the puck without getting a shot on goal. Zuccarello does go to the net, and he's a tough little guy from Norway. So I have a lot of respect for him, and I think he's a good. It maybe is a little bit of an overpayment, but if they get the type of year that they got from him last year, I think the Rangers will be very happy.
Yeah, Kreider. Again, I think they got both these guys for very little money, and that's sort of what I want to touch on today because, I mean, Kreider again is another player who we talked about. He got basically what we talked about him getting, right in the 2.5 range or somewhere in there. But my goodness, Kreider just brings tons of speed. He was very important last year in the playoffs. We saw it to the Rangers when they didn't have Kreider versus when they did have him. He was really a big player for them. And any Flyers fan or any fan who watches this division a lot knows that what Kreider means to the Rangers. He's a big player for them. He's and he's a better than a $2.5 million player. He's better than a third liner.
Right.
And these are the guys that are. I mean, those two guys to me, if I was to pin the future of the Rangers on two players, it would be Zuccarello and Kreider. Mm-hmm. So them both signing these short-term deals reminds me of players in the past, like Patrick Stefan, or Derek Stepan. I'm sorry. I always Patrick Stefan. This is where I am. I'm like in Stratomatic League. What, like 1980? Patrick Stefan was a Red Wing, right? My God.
Atlanta Thrashers, first overall.
Atlanta Thrasher, right? That's even worse. All right, so there you go.
And he disappeared pretty fast. Probably one of the worst.
Yeah, but he was like a highly touted prospect, correct?
And he came back as Derek Stepan. There you go.
Derek Stepan, Lord, I'm the worst.
But okay.
But anyway, what I'm saying is Stepan. The history here is that with the Rangers is they get these guys like Dubinsky or Stepan or Callahan, and they tie them into short-term deals for less money with the promise that there are better things at the other end of this other side of the rainbow, and often there isn't. And this kind of what's happening in the Rangers is we're seeing like there's a qualitative effect to this with other players in the locker room. So now when these guys sign a deal, they're thinking the same thing. They're like, well, yeah, sure, I'll sign a one-year deal, but that doesn't mean anything in the Rangers. With the Rangers right now.
This is a proving ground. You have to prove that you're worth the big money before you'll get the big money from the Rangers. I mean, like you said, Dubinsky, guys like Artem Anisimov, who ended up getting traded away in the deal for Nash. I mean, those guys were all signed to like short-term deals and then got their long-term deals, or at least Dubinsky did with Columbus. I mean, Kreider, if you look at it, and the reason he only got 2.5, which I'll take 2.5 million right now, thank you. But he had one good playoff after coming out of BC 3 years ago. He was the whipping boy of John Tortorella 2 years ago, so he played most of the year in the American Hockey League. Exactly. He had a good year last year and a decent playoff. So basically, he's getting $2.5 million on one good season. If he would have put two good seasons together, I think he makes over $3 million. So good signing, but he still has something to prove in terms of putting up another good 1 or 2 years before they're willing to pay big money.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. I just think that the Rangers are very conservative. Like they've always been very conservative with this kind of thing, and sometimes that pays off, and sometimes it doesn't. And I think we've just seen so many teams who do things differently. And it also doesn't always work out. Like obviously we see long-term deals that just fail miserably. But let's go to Josh, who's got some Penguins news, and then we'll come back to Ryan O'Reilly. Josh.
Yes, the Pittsburgh Penguins. He was with the organization as an assistant coach. Now, Jacques Martin is the senior advisor to hockey operations for the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Can I tell you my Jacques Martin story? I got a good one.
I'm sure
Go
it's
for it.
exciting.
All right, so this
I'm
was
intrigued.
this was the trade deadline back when Martin was still the general manager of the Florida Panthers, and they were trying to trade Jay Bomeister. Okay, and it was the deadline, and it was he was up in the Flyers had real interest in Bomeister, and they had him up. Jacques Martin was in the Flyers press box often, very often, and he was in so we'd see him up there, and he's a really nice guy, like a super nice guy, and just I mean, the thing about hockey people are they're just great guys, and Jacques Martin has a certain, reputation of being a certain kind of coach, and that he's, he was
Je ne sais quoi. Yes.
yes, right, but he's in Philly and he's sitting next to me in the press box, which is something that I don't know that he probably would have wanted to do, but because I was writing Bomeister rumors every 5 seconds at that point, and but he didn't know who I was, so that was fine. So I think the Flyers. I really am convinced that they would do this on purpose at times, just to totally screw. Because this also happened with Pierre. Oh God, what's his name? The old
Gauthier?
Pierre Gauthier used to sit next to me all the time. Yes, and
Not just a pretty face, guys.
no, you're not. That's pretty good. Just to pick up I mean, how many Pierres are there, Josh? I mean, you just pick Pierre Gauthier out of the air.
Pierre Maguire, Pierre LeBrun, Pierre.
So
Pierre LaRouche.
So I'm sitting with him, and we're talking. And, he's just talking about, something happened on the ice, and he's like, "Oh, that was a good play." And I'm like, "Yeah, this guy's been playing really well." I forget who it was at the time, and he just, I'm like, "Yeah, you should look at him for your Jay Bomeister trade." I just jokingly said, He's like, "Ha ha, yeah, all right." And then I see, he doesn't ask who I am still, and I'm sitting there, and we get to the in between periods where everybody sort of goes up to the lounge area where the media people, you can talk to people and see the highlights and stuff like that, and I see he asked Pierre Gauthier, oddly enough, about who's that guy, and he's like, "Oh, that's excellent." And then he never sat next to me again. So there you go. I just thought that was a good story, and it just shows the love that I bring to the press box that people.
Does Pepe Le Pew count as a Pierre? Sorry.
Pepe is a Pepe. Yeah, Pepe Le Pew is a Pepe. Pepe is a skunk. Go ahead.
Well,
that guy's a skunk.
Just Martin being kicked up as a senior advisor, to me, it would appear that Mike Johnston, the new Penguins coach, really didn't want him on the staff. Not to say that there's any acrimony or anything like that, but I'm sure he's got a new philosophy. Martin was brought in, to be under Dan Bylsma and sort of help out with the defensive situation on that team. He's got experience as a former general manager, and I'm sure that I know that other senior advisors in the league, a guy like Cliff Fletcher in Toronto, it's basically like a part-time job where he comes in every once in a while and he provides his experience and his opinion. But I would think this is more, he's earning a paycheck and they want him to fulfill some sort of role, so that's what this is.
And he's a good scout. I would venture that he's better than your average scout. So they'll send him around. They probably won't even move him there. He'll probably live wherever he's living now. That kind of situation. And we have Mark Howe is in the Flyers press box every game, but he works for the Red Wings. But he lives in Philadelphia still. But he's in the Flyers. There's a lot of guys like that are around the league that work for other teams that you see. Bill Barber used to be in the Flyers press box all the time when he worked with Tampa. So, this is very this is not uncommon at all. But I'm good for him. I like Jacques Martin. He, we did joke about that a couple years after that. I talked to him about that situation that happened when he actually did. We were talking, and he didn't have a player that he was scouting so intensely that I was writing about so intensely, and we just had some fun with it. Pierre Gauthier, too, by the way, was the funniest guy on the planet. It still is funny, but he was great, awesome to sit next to. He would never ever tell me a single rumor, but he used to be just a really funny guy and really really good dad. Pierre Gauthier, people don't know him very well. He deserves a better fate in Montreal. I'm convinced of. Anyway, enough of story time. Let's go to Ryan O'Reilly, who agrees to a 2-year deal, a pay cut deal, like we had talked about before, $5.8 million and $6.2 million. This is probably what would have happened with the arbitrator, so it sort of just avoids the arbitration. But basically, this is, I think, where the arbitration was heading. And holy cow, this sounds if this sounds like a bridge deal to unrestricted free agency if I've ever heard of one.
Oh yeah. This was a compromise deal, Eck. This was a complete compromise deal, and O'Reilly. I mean, okay, the Avs got what they wanted. They got him for 2 more years. They also got the fact that they're not paying him more than Matt Duchene, and if you look at it, the AAV on this contract is $6 million. So they're not paying him more. He, maybe in his mind, okay, at least I'm getting as much, so he's valued. But the end result is that maybe after this year, when he has 1 year left before he becomes a UFA, they trade him, or if they keep him for both years, he's gone. But like I said when Josh let me know of the arbitration award or the compromise, this is the last contract that Ryan O'Reilly signs in Colorado in my estimation. He will be somewhere else either next summer or in 2 years as a UFA. He is gone. So bye-bye, Avalanche.
You would think so. I mean, the only thing I will say, playing a little devil's advocate, and then Josh, I want your opinion on the O'Reilly signing, is this. The next 2 years, you just never know what's going to happen. This is why I play. You will hear this about all this time, like that they'll never bridge gaps. If the Colorado Avalanche go on and win 2 Stanley Cups and you just don't know. I mean, things change. But as of now, I would say the relationship is is tenuous at best. But the one thing that you have to give and I've heard this time and time again about Ryan O'Reilly, is when he's obviously is a little bit of a contract guy who really negotiates hard and wants his agents to negotiate hard. But once he's done his contract, he's a team player all the way. He's an incredible teammate. He's one of the great players in the locker room, and no one seems to care. So it doesn't. I mean, for now, we'll see. And it sounds like in 2 years this is definite, but we'll find out for sure as time goes on. Josh, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, Ryan O'Reilly, this is the second time he's been signed, and we're hearing that he might not last in Colorado. The last time they signed him, the Flames signed him to an offer sheet, and the Avalanche matched it. Word was eventually when I think they had to wait a year after they matched the offer that there was talk that he would be traded. Didn't happen. Now he's signed again, and Mike said earlier to me that watch he'll be traded, and a couple other people have said the same thing. So it's going to be interesting to see what Colorado does. But they got to make sure if they do deal him that they do get a good return on him. Losing Paul Stastny does hurt him a bit.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I wouldn't have said that 2 years ago when he was god awful. But
that's
Stastny.
the thing about Paul Stastny, that I've said it many times. He's like.
Yeah.
For most of that contract, for most of the time Paul Stastny was in Colorado, he was considered untradeable because of how much money he was making.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that all these guys and teams are agreeing to terms before the arbitrator makes me laugh. God knows how much this arbitrator is making, but what's he done? Because there's been like five or six signings prior to arbitration, so the arbitrator hasn't even had to really work. Yeah, he gave Sabatka his 1 year deal. He wasn't even present for the hearing, obviously, because he signed in the KHL. And I think there was another one as well that went to arbitration. Yeah, I think there was 1 or 2. But I think 5 or 6 have been settled out of arbitration.
Historically, 1 year we did on Hockey Buzz, we had a fun thing we thought we would do is we actually did a arbitration like a poll. And basically, I on one of my blogs, I said, okay, here's all the guys in arbitration. How much are they going to sign for? This is their arbitration dates, and everybody was. And I said, let's just do it like a pool. Let's do it like a pool and see who wins, who gets the most, who's closest, or whatever. And literally, I think there were 12 guys going to arbitration that year, and I think one of them might have gone, but I'm not even sure if one of them went. These always settle. I mean, it just comes down to deadlines, which is why not to go down a rabbit hole, but which is why the NHL NHL lockout was always so frustrating, right? It just comes down to deadlines. When you set a deadline up with an arbitrator, you get a deal done. Mike?
what I think is going to happen with O'Reilly is Nathan McKinnon is on the second year of his entry-level deal.
Exactly.
After this year, he is eligible to sign an extension. I would not be surprised if Colorado tries to lock him up long-term, 6 or 7 years, maybe even 8 if they can, like Edmonton did with Nugent Hopkins or Taylor Hall. Try to get a little bit of a discount, but sign him to that big money long-term deal because he looks to be a guy who's a franchise player. Once they get him locked up, then I think they're free to possibly trade O'Reilly because then they would have Duchesne locked up long-term, McKinnon locked up long-term as your top 2 centers. McKinnon isn't being forced into playing a center role this year because they'll probably move O'Reilly back down into the middle instead of playing on the wing with Duchesne. But it makes sense. Once they have those 2 guys locked up, then they have the freedom to trade O'Reilly and probably get themselves a package of 2-3 players or a couple players in a draft pick before he walks.
Josh.
Back to the arbitrator. I just want to, if I can, I want to reenact the arbitrator's day. Hey, honey, I'm coming home. Looks like I got nothing going on here again, so I'll see you soon.
Meeting
you got a rat
canceled.
as your
Meeting
phone.
canceled. Make some brisket. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a banana.
Oh yeah, well, I don't know why I used a rat when I have a phone right next to me.
You have a banana.
I don't have
a good mock phone.
I don't know why I picked up the rat, but anyway.
By the way,
I don't have an answer.
Oh, it was funny. I mean, yesterday, I'm not going to go down the hole. Let's continue on.
Please.
Eller, Lars Eller has requested $3.1 million on his contract offer, and the Canadiens have countered with $1.65 million. Is the report. So Lars Ellers, who at times was a star player for the Canadiens to a degree, and is definitely one of the largest Canadian forwards by far.
Is he another guy though, Eck, that because of the concussion he's sustained hasn't really been as effective as he was prior to that concussion? Because when I'll never forget when Rafael Diaz served that up and he just got nailed at center ice. I'm like, his career is over.
That's lauding somebody with faint praise there, Eck. Lars Eller is one of their biggest forwards.
No, I know. That's why I was saying. That's exactly what I was thinking about. When I think of what do you think of when you think of Lars Eller? You think he's the big forward on that team. I mean, he's
in the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. My God.
Or the green-eyed man, for those of you who've watched Bolt recently, like I have. Great movie, Bolt. Watch Bolt with your children. But yes, okay. I think, and some people in the chat room think that Eller, is deserving of more closer to where he wants than what the Canadiens. They're more on the Eller side of things. I think Josh is right, though. I think that we don't know Lars Eller last year in the playoffs was sort of invisible. There were times when he was okay, but we wouldn't call him the reason the Canadiens made the run. Like they were. He would play on the second line at times. He'd be on the fourth line at times.
Heck, I put him in the same category as a David Booth who just signed with the Leafs. I mean, it's a guy that's on the ice, and you know what? I'll never forget my conversation with Eric Lindros 2 years ago when I was talking to him about Crosby and the concussion he was going through, and he said to me, Josh, when I got my concussion the first time, my big one, I was out there and I was playing scared and I was afraid to go in the corners and I was afraid to, to even hit somebody because I was just so scared that they was going to come back again. And that's the same thing that these guys go through after sustaining a really bad concussion. They're afraid. They're afraid to go in the corners. They're afraid to mix it up. They're afraid to hit guys because they don't want that feeling back.
Oh, yeah.
This has. Again, this is another one that I don't think is going to go to hearing. I mean, if you look at Eller the last 3 years, he had the injury shortened. He had the concussion in the playoffs from I think it was Eric Gryba who hit him. 3 years ago he had 16 goals. Last year in the lockout, or 2 years ago in the lockout shortened season, he had 8 goals. Last year he had 12 goals.
Yeah.
He's a third line guy. I mean, I think what's going to end up happening is they're going to meet halfway. It'll be around $2.4 million on a 1 year or maybe even a 2 year deal, and you call it a day. I mean, if $3.1 million for a guy like Lars Eller is absurd. I mean, he's a useful player. He can eat up minutes. He can kill penalties. He's, a good secondary scorer. But we're getting to the point now where we're paying fourth liners $3 million, and it's getting ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's a fourth liner, but
no.
I mean, I think I thought it was a really slick move to pick him up when they traded Halak and got him, because he was pretty high pedigree, and they had to trade Halak, so they were sort of in a bind. So to get Ehlers, that was something. I thought that was impressive, but I also know Montreal would move him in a heartbeat. I know at the trade deadline last year he was included in some of the deals they were looking into making. He ended up not going, but there were a lot of people around the team that day that thought that would have told you that Eller was the most likely guy to get traded that day. So yeah, I think that I think $3 million is maybe the middle ground here. $2.5 million 1 year deal. See if he is okay, like Josh says. Because concussions, Josh. I mean, I had to quit playing hockey as a teenager for a year because of concussions. I really know. I know how awful it is, and that was the time, when concussions. That was back in the 30s. I'm just kidding. Really. But that
makes sense.
Yeah, no, that was
go to speakeasies.
I know. No, yeah, when I was going to speakeasy. No, that was the late 80s, and back in the late 80s, if you got hit playing, how many of us? I mean, come on, everybody did this. We all played sports. We got hit in the head, and we kept playing. And you play the next day with a headache, and you're like, yeah, I got a headache. I got hit yesterday. You just played. You kept playing, and we were idiots. I mean, we were absolute idiots because we didn't know any better. But you couldn't stop playing. I coach girls soccer. My daughter's soccer team, and one of the things that they make you do in Pennsylvania when you coach like a travel soccer team is you have to take this concussion training, which is like an hour-long video course, which is really, really well done, about this. About what to look for and about how concussions close to one another, how dangerous they are, and on all this stuff. And this is why they're afraid, Josh, because it's like it comes down to if you get one concussion, that's terrible. But if you let yourself heal, you're going to be fine. You get 2 concussions, then you're done. Josh?
Well, I want to bring this up since we are now talking about concussions, and there was a good story on Sportsnet talking about scientists and engineers at Virginia Tech are attempting to make hockey a safer sport by implementing a 5-star rating system for hockey helmets, just like they did with the star system used in football.
Yeah, they should. Absolutely should.
So it's going to be definitely. I think this is something that
it is the worst injury I've ever had. I mean, like I said, I've had a lot of injuries from playing goal. I would get beat up, I get banged up, but there's nothing like a concussion, and there's nothing worse than. The only thing worse than me having a concussion was seeing my daughter have a concussion once, and just having to really deal with that. And as much as we all want to get our kids out there playing, think they should get back out there. I mean, we have one girl on our team who played through one of them, didn't really tell her parents she got hit in the head, then got a second concussion, and now hasn't been able to play for like 6 months, and it was like a star student having a trouble reading now. She's a 13-year-old girl having trouble reading now. 6 months later, and it wasn't a terrible hit. It was just that she took a soccer ball to the head in the wrong way, and it was bloody nose, and we all thought, oh man, that stinks. But here she is 6 months later. You got to be so careful, and so you think about that, and I think about my time as a concussion, and of course these are pro athletes, but the difference is this, if we have a Charlie horse or we pull our Achilles and try to get back from it in some way, shape, or form, it'll take us twice as long as it would take an NHL player to get back. Like an NHL player is like so. If you have a concussion, there is no way of speeding that process up, no matter how in shape you are or how out of shape you are. You can't exercise, you can't do anything, you can't fix the inside of your brain. They're going to be afraid when they go back out there, and
And
Lindros was no question affected by it, and it really, it's a shame because Lindros, as you know, Josh, is a really great guy and just completely got, we should do an Eric Lindros show sometime. I would love to do that and talk about like Eric Lindros in the Hall of Fame because he's one of my favorite topics that I would love to do a report on, like, just a long report on Eric Lindros because he's the most interesting people out there.
And there's a good shot at him finally going to the Hall of Fame now that Bobby Clark, which is funny I'm saying this, Bobby Clark is now on the board of directors for the Hall of Fame committee. And it's funny, these two people hated each other for years in Philadelphia and after Philadelphia, and now now they're friends again. And Bobby Clark, I think, is going to be the guy that gets Eric in the Hall of Fame, and I think it can happen as early as next year, and I think there's a very good shot that happens.
Just as an addendum to the concussion story, because we talked about Booth yesterday, if we talk about the effect on a career, I mean, we know that Lindros was an MVP, franchise player, and everything sort of went downhill health-wise after the Scott Stevens hit. David Booth scored 53 goals in his first two seasons with first two full seasons with Florida. Probably would have made the U.S. Olympic team in 2010. Skilled player, and ever since that hit that Mike Richards put on him in October of 2009, his career has been different. He scored 20 goals once, and he's had a series of other injuries besides concussions. I mean, he hasn't had a concussion problem in a few years, but I'm sure the tentative nature of that has put him, he's had ankle injuries and knee injuries and a few other injuries, and it just what his career could have been and what it ended up being after that concussion happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Definitely couldn't agree more. So let's move on, though. Another interesting story I came upon was aiming to qualify for the 2018 Olympics, South Korea has signed former NHL, current AHL coach Jim Peck.
Former
to
Peck.
A 4-year deal. Yes, to a 4-year deal to coach a national team. So for those of you not following the story, South Korea has been pretty aggressive about this. Not just signing this guy, which is a good thing to do, but also just the fact that they've had players over here training in different situations, working out with different, because they really, they host the next Olympics, and with ice hockey being such a major part of the Olympics, they really want to get a team in there. But it's like the equivalent of, in South Korean ice hockey is so far behind. Getting in will still be is still a big long shot for them. But I like it. I like the fact that this is a case of the Olympics, kind of helping to spread hockey to another place, and now this is more and more. Valid. I didn't really talk about that, but I just think it's interesting.
Now the question is whether South Korea, if they do qualify for the Olympics in 2018, will be playing American college players and Canadian junior players, or they'll be playing against NHL players, because we haven't heard anything, and I don't think we will hear anything for at least a little while of whether they're going to go in 2018.
Right. We haven't, and I was of the mindset that they weren't going to go, and now I am sort of in the middle again. Just talking to people, I get the impression that they might go again. Although I do think we'll see the World Cup of Hockey before that, and then if the World Cup of Hockey, I think we might have to see a situation like where the World Cup of Hockey happens, the Olympics happen, another World Cup of Hockey happens, and then maybe we can sort of phase out the Olympics. But we may have to go back to one more Olympics to get.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a carrot and stick here, Ak, where if there is a World Cup, they will go to another Olympics. Like make the World Cup happen, and then we'll give it serious consideration. If there is no coalescing by the IIHF and the NHL on a World Cup, then I think probably you're not going to see them in the Olympics in 2018.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Josh.
We haven't brought up Patrick Cote, have we?
No. That's a really weird situation.
Did you see that story?
I saw it, yeah.
Patrick Cote, former second-round pick of the Dallas Stars in '95, apparently robbed 2 banks and has confessed to the heists in May after police questioned him in connection with a stolen vehicle. That's kind of
a couple
ballsy.
of things about this that are interesting. First of all, Patrick Cote, as a bank robber is bizarre in and of itself. And then just the concept of bank robbing in general, to me, Like, does this still happen? Do people still go and rob banks like with a gun, and a mask? I mean, can I go in like with my Chewbacca mask and go up to the local, bank and no, I mean, it's just bizarre. I don't know.
You're gonna get caught eventually. Like, who does that? Really?
Yeah, I mean, with all the cameras and everything, I mean, like, how can you possibly? Yeah, I mean, geez.
Yeah.
The question is this sentence a one-way deal or a two-way deal?
Maybe I could pull it off, but
Josh, you've been on TV too often with that camera to ever pull off an actual fight.
I'm not gonna make any jokes about whether. No, never mind. In the prison.
I know.
Oh, geez. Thanks.
That's
not going there.
Okay, Arizona. Another really good story. I like this story too. This is on NHL.com actually, and that is that Arizona is starting to produce top-end hockey talent at a higher level, which is, we talked a little bit about yesterday about the bad parts of Arizona.
Just in time for the franchise to leave.
Okay, now, no, Mr. Cynical there. All right, let's assume that they figure out this crazy. I mean, they've overcome bigger obstacles in this one in the Arizona Coyotes battle. So let's just assume, that's possible. But is no question. I mean, this is why the NHL is there. This is the point. This is the whole point of this whole thing, is to see hockey grow. Like, I've said it 1,000 times, but I'll say it again. Put a team in, in Markham. Yeah, sure, you're going to see success. They're going to make a lot of money, and everybody's going to be happy. But you're not going to create a single new hockey fan in Markham. Everybody there is already a hockey fan, or knows about hockey, or doesn't want to be a hockey fan. Put a team with 7.8 million Metro Phoenix, Arizona, and yeah, you're going to create hockey fans, people who have never been exposed to it. And then you're going to create hockey players, and you're going to create, and there's going to be a whole set. And this is, this is what Carolina did well, Dallas did well, certain cities have done, Washington did well, which is take money that they get as an expansion, and plug it into the community and build youth hockey programs. This is so vitally important. This should be a requirement, in my opinion. If I ran the NHL, I would say, okay, you want an expansion franchise? All right, it's going to be $600 million or whatever to buy that expansion franchise, and then you also have to commit $100 million right now to the infrastructure of the hockey community. Just you have to build a couple rinks. You gotta sponsor, and because that's everything. That's the future. That's where it comes from. So it's good to see. Brendan Burke is Sean Burke's son. He's a 6'3" goalie. He's like his father at age 19. It says, turning away shots from and he's Henrik Samuelsson is the son of former Coyotes assistant Ulf Samuelsson. It was Arizona's first selection in 2012, and coming off a junior season when he led the Edmonton Oil Kings to the Memorial Cup championship. These are Sean Couturier is from Arizona. Do not forget. Grew up in Phoenix. He moved to Canada shortly after, but he
grew up there.
He did grow up there, and chose Canada over the U.S. which again, him and Tyler Myers. But this is and we've seen other things. There's it's not just those with NHL bloodlines, as it says. Zach LaRaza spent 2 seasons with the United States national team program. Was drafted by the Coyotes in the 7th round. I like that the Coyotes are drafting a lot of these guys too. This is another thing, kind of the cool thing, that they're bringing back local people, which makes a ton of sense. And why wouldn't they? So yeah. I mean, the Calgary Flames drafted Austin Carroll, who played for the junior Coyotes development team, and was a 2014 7th-round pick this year. So, and there's an elite prospect named Austin Matthews, who's a 16-year-old scoring machine, it says, from Scottsdale, who was the only 2016 NHL draft prospect invited to attend a U.S. Hockey Summer Junior Evaluation Camp next month in Lake Placid, where we will be talking about that next month. So yeah, this is Arizona. This is why we have a team there.
Well, I think that's a corollary.
Now from the other point of view.
Yeah.
Mike,
No. I think that's a nice corollary to the presence of the Coyotes being in Arizona. That you have players who are sons of NHL players, or just the influence that the team has there in getting young athletes interested in hockey. I mean, you see the footprints of something like Wayne Gretzky being in Los Angeles with a young player like Emerson Edom, who's on the Anaheim Ducks. And I do like franchises who draft local players
Yeah.
I know the Sabres have done that. They drafted a couple years ago a kid, I think it's Justin Bailey, who is actually the son of a former Buffalo Bills linebacker. They drafted him in the second round, and it gives the fan base something more to root for if one of their own is going to be a prospect in the organization. But let's be serious. I mean, I think that it's a good thing, but that's not the reason why they moved to Arizona. They thought they were in an untapped big market that they could have a successful NHL team. And ever since the move from downtown Phoenix to Glendale, that franchise has been an economic disaster.
Well,
so I think that's got to be straightened out before we talk about any positives regarding the.
No, we can. It doesn't have to start up before we start talking about positives. I mean, I agree with you on that. I do think this is why you moved there, and I do think you can sit there and say they moved there to make money, but of course that's why they moved there, to make money and to try to get that. But how do you do that? And in order you have to get hockey culture into the community, and the only way to do that is things like this happening. This is what it comes down to. This is how you get there. You get there from people who love hockey to move there, and then by creating new hockey fans, which I do think is a very important thing. So I'm this is some good news with Arizona. I thought yesterday we should give them some positive news. Let's take some questions in the chat room as well.
I got one thing I want to say. Back to Ryan O'Reilly. Joe Sakic spoke to the Denver Post about the relationship, and he said there was never any animosity between us this whole time. Any of the perceived animosity came from the outside. Sakic also said the Avs want to keep O'Reilly long term, and that we'll keep working at it and see what happens.
There you go.
And that's that is boilerplate. That is what an organization says when they've signed a player. But and I'm not saying I have any kind of inside knowledge here, but it all is all tied to what O'Reilly is being paid. Being the salary that the guy is being paid is a sign of respect from an organization. And they've now stepped up and they've paid him on an equivalent level to Matt Duchene. I will tell you right now that Nathan MacKinnon will end up probably signing for more than Matt Duchene if he signs the long-term deal. And there's no way in hell that Joe Sakic and Patrick Waugh will be signing Ryan O'Reilly in 2 years for more than Nathan MacKinnon is making. So either they trade him next summer or he walks as an unrestricted free agent in 2 years. I don't see anything changing that, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, I could see that. I don't think anything's going to change that either. But it's all we can say is whenever you don't think anything can change it, things in NHL tend to change things. Let's go take some questions. When are you going to talk about Florida? Well, I have like I said before earlier in the show, you may have missed it. We're trying to get guests to talk about these teams, and we have a couple lined up. So we were trying our LA guy today, couldn't make it last minute, so we're gonna have another LA person. But we also Florida could be tomorrow. Working on Florida for tomorrow. Really good guests from there to help talk about that as well. Okay, let's see. There's no new news on Dion Phaneuf. Jason Hammer asks. The only thing I've heard, and I wrote this a little bit, talked about it a little bit before too, was that they're trying to get creative with this a little bit. So if he doesn't get moved, it won't be from a lack of trying to be creative for the Maple Leafs. I heard they're offering up a really good prospect along with him. I don't know who that prospect is, but that they're trying to package Phaneuf with a young prospect. I don't think it would be somebody. All I was told is it's somebody that the Leaf fans won't be happy about them moving. But I think what has to happen is that they have to move him. They're going to have to sweeten the pot here. The question.
I'd have a guess who that prospect is, but I don't really want to take a guess. But
you can guess.
If they have a number of good young defensemen.
Yep.
I would think it would be one of those good young defensemen, not Gardner or Riley, but I'm talking about they have 3 or 4 really good prospect young defensemen who may be 1 to 2 years away, and it might be one of those guys.
Yeah, that would make some sense. Question here: any Evan Adkins asks, any news from your sources that Dave Poulin could head to Philly as Hexie's assistant GM? No news from his sources about that at all. Of course, Poulin was let go yesterday by the Maple Leafs. Shaking your head there, Mike. Don't like that move?
I just thought, well, let's just say this. It's very unusual that two assistant GMs are let go in late July.
Yeah,
that's true. Usually they're let go before the draft or before free agency sets in, where they get a chance to actually like put out feelers around the league and lock down a job for next year. I'm fairly sure that both Loisel and Poulin were under long-term deals, so I'm sure there's a settlement. So they're probably not going to be hurting financially. But it was done fairly late, and a lot of people were caught by surprise simply because they thought that time period was over with. They could have added Kyle Dubas, who apparently is an up-and-comer, meteoric rise through the OHL ranks. They could have added him as a third assistant GM and not let these guys go. But I think this is more, Brendan Shanahan putting his stamp on the organization, and this is as Josh and I debated yesterday. Unfortunately for a lot of Leaf fans, this is the culture change that they were talking about. Firing the coaching staff, not Randy Carlyle, firing the assistant general managers, not Dave Nonis. But in terms of the players, all they've done is cleaned out the bottom six and added different bottom six players. We'll see if that solves any problems, but I just caught a little aback by them firing two assistant GMs in late July.
Josh?
Claude Lozelle, speaking of Claude Lozelle, did you guys see Dreger's tweet a couple hours ago saying, assuming NHL is still searching for Shanahan's replacement in the safety department, Claude Lozelle's background should make him a candidate?
Yeah. He's worked for the league before. He's worked for the league.
They need somebody in that position, really, stat. I mean, they really are. Yeah. They have to fill that spot. We got a season coming up here, and it's not an easy position. It takes a real, Shanahan did a good job with it. It takes a certain kind of personality to make that work. Okay, so also, but as far as Poulin goes, the question was, no, I haven't heard anything regarding Poulin and the Flyers, although there's no question in my mind that the Flyers will bring Poulin on in some way, shape, or form if they can. He's a guy that, Snyder loves, the whole organization loves him. Hexie obviously has a great relationship with him. So I do think that if Poulin wants a job, the Flyers we'll give him a job, whether it's in scouting, whether it's as an assistant or some way, shape, or form. Poulin will be here. He might want a specific other kind of job. Poulin will be a GM in the league eventually. So this is just as I do think Dave Poulin will eventually be a general manager. Okay, let's see. We got Paul Martin has 1 year left in his contract and likely won't resign. This comes from Rossi 871. What do you think the Pens could fetch for him if they traded him now? Paul Martin traded now, not much, but as the year goes on, perhaps he's the kind of, and I just think he's way more valuable to the Penguins than anything they get for him. I think that's what it comes down to. He's Paul Martin has his moments of where he looks really good and the moments where he doesn't, but he's valuable to that team. He's part of that team, and they've made so many changes that they got to keep consistency there.
I can't see them moving Paul Martin unless they fall out of the race, and I can't see that team falling out of the race unless Malkin or Crosby get hurt or Marc-Andre Fleury starts letting in beach balls. I mean, I mean, right now they have a couple young defensemen who are close, especially Pouliot, who I think will make the team next year. But they did they lost Niskanen, they lost Orpik, they replaced one of them with Ehrhoff.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, they either keep Martin through the year and try to sign him in the summer, or they just let him walk at the end of the year as a UFA. But I don't think that they're going to trade him.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to trade him either. Okay, so any truth to having in-depth discussions with Colorado? Okay, this is from Dude Matthias. Yes. Heck, is it true the Habs are having in-depth discussions with Colorado and the New York Islanders about PK Subban? And the answer is no. Next question. Any rumblings on the Wings getting a right-handed defenseman? This is from. Really there is nothing to. They're not going to trade PK. In fact, they're pretty close to signing him, from what I've heard. Extending him. PK is super valuable. Somebody asked. I'm trying to find who asked about Brassard. I can't find it, but anyway, but yeah, Brassard I talked about today. I really think Brassard is on the move. I talked to people yesterday before these signings even happened, and then again this morning before Kreider and Zuccarello signed, and then said that Winnipeg and Montreal had both talked to the Rangers about Derek Brassard. I think Brassard is a good bet to be gone. With Winnipeg, you have to ask yourself, okay, well, Brassard would be part of an Evander Kane trade. If there wasn't an Evander Kane trade going down, Derek Brassard would be a part of that. That though doesn't help the Rangers very much financially. Evander Kane's contract's not too bad, so you could possibly work it out. But if you're going to give almost $6 million to somebody, you're going to give it to Evander Kane before you give it to Derek Brassard. The question is, what can Winnipeg sign him? So I will say this, that I had a text just come in now that told me I should mention that that Ryan O'Reilly's contract numbers make him very tradable. So that comes from a person, a really high up person. So that's another possibility, I guess.
I mean, the contract didn't end the possibility of Ryan O'Reilly being traded. I'm just with them losing Paul Stastny this year, and Nathan MacKinnon being a 19-year-old, and then probably not wanting to force him in and play him in a position that has a lot of defensive responsibilities. I think they would probably keep O'Reilly this year and then move him next year rather than trading him now, unless they get a center back. Unless we're talking, them getting a center of pretty decent quality back in the deal.
Yeah, exactly. All right, I guess that's all the time we have for today. It's almost 2 o'clock. We want to thank you guys for joining us. You can follow Josh wherever he goes, if you're in near the fine town of Markham.
If you're a stalker.
Or you can follow him on Twitter at Josh Rimmer Hockey. Always a good follow.
And also at Slimmer Rimmer, if you care to hear how I lost my
saw
weight.
that. Slimmer Rimmer. What is that? What is Slimmer Rimmer exactly? It's just your new...
That is my weight loss Twitter that I created. So
Sweet.
If you're interested in hearing about it, let me know. I even have some $50 gift cards if you want to try it out. It's worth it.
Get them as a sponsor. They should.
Yes.
We should talk to them about. Gosh, we're talking about them now. So anyway, yeah. All right, Mike, you can follow at Mike in Buffalo, and soon he'll be the new correspondent for Fan 5. No, I'm just kidding. Just a joke.
I prefer being the lead columnist for Hockey Buzz. Thank you.
That's awesome. I like to hear that. Thank you very much, Mike. I really appreciate that. Tomorrow's show might be a little bit earlier. I haven't even told the other guys this yet. Just got a text here that we may have a meeting in the afternoon, but we'll find out. So just keep up to date. Probably 1 o'clock. Probably going to be the same, but there's a small chance maybe we have to go a little bit earlier side tomorrow. And we're going to also try to get, like I said, somebody in for Florida tomorrow, and if I get the woman I hope we're getting in. It will be a great time, so we'll enjoy that for sure. All right. Remember, guys, that didn't sound right. Without the buzz, it's just hockey. Talk to you soon.